invested in the work that we do. We know affordable housing gets more and more difficult as the years go by, and so I'm proud that the journalism community has stepped up to work on this together to make sure that everybody has the coverage and attention on this issue that's needed. So I just want to welcome you. I'm Jadara Marshall. I'm the president and CEO of WFAE, and welcome to our new home uptown. This is a Center for Civic and Community Engagement, and so we're happy to see you here today and hope this won't be the last time that you visit with us. Thank you.
These people represent the 7 major media companies: the Charlotte Observer, Carolina Public Press, La Noticia, Q City Metro, Q News, WCNC Charlotte, who is graciously live streaming for us today, and our host, again, WFAE, in addition to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library and Knight School of Communication at Queen's University. I also want to quickly thank our sponsors for today and the supporters of the CJC throughout the entire year. NC Local News Lab Fund, Wells Fargo, who you'll have a chance to hear from later this morning, Knight Foundation, hey Charles, taking some photos for you, Dream Key Partners, and HostNets. We welcome our viewers at home or at work who are watching us through live stream at charlottejournalism.org. So today we are joined by housing advocates, neighbors, residents, community leaders, developers, journalists, everyone to talk about current trends in affordable housing and how we can work together. I said we can't do this as a news organization collaborative without some breaking news happening right at the start to delay us or throw us off. But so also you'll notice things are a little different today. It's a little different than last year. I'll give it time for the second alert, okay? Beyond the alerts, and we do have everyone is safe. We want today to be conversational. We're approaching it like an unsummit summit. My hope is that you'll all walk away today with new ideas. Perhaps you'll walk away with new collaborations in the spirit of what brings us all together as this collaborative to find out ways to reshape the future of affordable housing in Charlotte together. So a couple of rules along that lines. We just want you to be respectful of each other in our time together. Some conversations may not finish today, and that's okay. We want these conversations to continue and keep going and more ways to work together. That means engaging with one another. We'll have an extended lunch today from 12:30 to 2 outside in the park. So, we hope you get to know new people, find new ways to connect. And we also want you to ask questions, share ideas, and help us source some of these solutions. One quick note, bathroom, back corner. So through the atrium and into the other room. And now, as we get started, I'd like to introduce our first panel. Kenny Robinson, Freedom Finding Missionaries. Our lead panelist Cherise Blackman from Westside Community Land Trust. Julie Porter from Dream Key Partners. Nadia Anderson, Associate Professor of Architecture and Urban Design in the School of Architecture at UNC Charlotte, and the Director of City Building Lab. Tamika Dunn from Community Link. And James Lee of James Lee & Associates and So, Charlotte's leading experts in affordable housing with us today, and they all bring different perspectives. We're excited to hear what you have to say. A few months back, Cherise participated in a virtual conversation with us with WFA's Nick Delicanal as part of our Solution City project. And during that conversation, she said that Charlotte needs more innovation. And that has stuck with me ever since, and it's been kind of a guiding light for this whole program today. So I wanted to start off with one question for all the panelists and then kind of turn it over to them. So Sharice, we'll start with you. With just what's one big idea? In other words, what innovation have you seen or heard that really excites you, keeps you up at night in a good way? Really a creative solution you would love to see happen in Charlotte.
Thank you, Chris. I would first like to start by saying I think that innovation is celebrated in a lot of other industries. So we know in technology, innovation is celebrated. We know in medicine, innovation is celebrated. And people make large-scale investments to try to find the next big thing that can really have a profound impact on humanity. And so we see it with the internet, we see it with cell phones, we see it with artificial intelligence, we see it with social media, which revolutionized how we communicate with one another. But what have we seen, really in housing since the suburbanization of America, since we started mass producing housing? What have we really seen is like a large-scale innovative model or innovative technique. And one of the things who said that it's insanity when you continue to do the same things over and over and expect different results. And so we know that affordable housing is an issue here locally, but it also is an issue nationally. Yet we're continuing to do the same things over and over, expecting a different result. So I think that that's reflective of the need to do something different, the need to disrupt the status quo, and the need to shift and change how we are implementing models locally and beyond. And so through the Land Trust, one of the things that I'm very excited about that I've been looking into and trying to get grant funding for is 3D printing, 3D construction printing. And we see that globally. We see it in Africa where they're using soil to be able to 3D print houses that people are living in. And then now there actually was a recent development in Virginia where Habitat, one of the Habitat for Humanity affiliates, 3D printed also can be replicated here in the U.S. And when you leverage 3D printers, it cuts down for construction. It greatly and significantly reduces the cost of construction, which then serves as subsidy to allow you to be able to sell or rent homes at a lower rate. And then beyond that, because we know that housing is not linear, can you imagine if we could revolutionize an entire industry where decrease and reduce costs to be able to create affordability, but now we can teach people how to be able to do things. So that's one of the major innovations that I think should be considered or explored locally here and across the region. I think that I'm familiar with each one of the panelists that are up here, and I think that each one of us have a specific niche that kind of helps us to leverage this work. And so I'm just going to pass it on to someone who would like to share their niche and innovation, one big idea.
And again, I'm Kenny Robinson, the Executive Director and Founder of Freedom Fighting Missionaries, where we serve the formerly incarcerated criminal justice involved individuals and families of those who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And one of the greatest barriers to serve this population is in housing. So we came with a big idea, and it is very innovative. And that idea is to think about a single mother of a newborn who is currently homeless. And how do you get that person from that state where they're at now to home ownership in 3 to 5 years? Right? That's a very big idea to take innovation. And the innovation that we discovered that organizations and systems that already exist, but just do not have a direct line to one another. Right? So we have been very careful to try to connect those dots, with the end result being that single mother with a child having an opportunity for home ownership in 3 to 5 years. to become homeowners, we need to prepare the community to have a home available for her when we go through all of the necessary steps that it takes to get that individual there. Unfortunately, that is a tough battle here in and it's very unfortunate that we have to compare these situations to even a pet, right? You would not start that puppy off and just go ahead and sit it out on its own. You know that it's going to take some love and some care and some concern for that puppy. And the same thing when it comes to us human beings, right? It has to take intentional care, concern, connection of all of these systems that commonly work in different areas, different sectors. We have proven that even those who have been impacted by the criminal justice system and deemed worthy to have a second chance, right? If you've been through the court system and you've been through incarceration and been released, then society, rules and laws and books have said that you deserve a second chance, right? And part of that second chance is housing. So we have already proven that these things cannot be done without temporary and permanent rental housing along the way. So we have been very innovative in our landlords to give these individuals a true second chance while we are preparing them for home ownership. Right, there's enough history and enough data that's on the books currently that says you can't just drop a person off on Section 8 vouchers and leave them there for 15 years. Right, that there has to be a continuation of these services that end up with that family becoming a homeowner. So hopefully by the time that child is in the third grade, that these numbers and statistics will shift, because there's currently numbers and statistics that exist that third grade is going to be at according to their living system, right? So our goal is to never have to need a McKinney-Vento system in no school system, right? That is a program that we would like to see eliminated, right? That there's just simply not a need for a special program for homeless children in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. So now I will pass it on to my good friend, Julie Porter.
Thanks, Andy. I have to comment first of all on Teresa's idea, because there's also a model in Maine that they are actually doing 3D printing of wood pulp into a 900 square foot home, absolutely gorgeous. And it could be used as an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. It doesn't need a slab. It is the most neat house I've ever seen. And if you go to the University of Maine's website, you can actually watch one of them being built. It's amazing. But I was going to go in a different direction. I had a hard time choosing between a couple of different ideas. But one of the things that we're really concerned about right now, everybody knows that property taxes went way up, or actually property values went way up in the most recent evaluation. And what's concerning to us is that the neighborhoods that are gentrifying, traditionally African American neighborhoods, got hit with sometimes 100% or more new evaluation increase. And we started thinking about, no matter what, let's say that I got a 25% increase. If a house in an African American community got 120%, even if they keep the supposed tax, rate the same, they are still going to pay more taxes than I would in terms of an increase. So it's just a basic math situation. So I had an idea that we could maybe recapture some of the increase in taxes that was being collected, and that we could use it for either property tax abatement, or we could use it for helping seniors stay in their homes if they cannot afford their taxes. I thought we could use it for a more ongoing rental assistance program, similar to the RAMP program. And the one thing I really wanted to make sure that everybody thought about was, is the system accessible? Can somebody go online and say, I need help paying my taxes? And that fund could be tapped into very quickly criteria, are they living in a gentrifying community, they could possibly, qualify for that funding. It could be used for anti-displacement activities, other types of anti-displacement activities. But the one thing we have also seen since the pandemic is that ongoing
from that kind of, economies of scale, but do it in a way that's more adaptable, that can fit better. And so things like different types of modular systems, which can include 3D printing. It's also possible to 3D print a certain, let's say, the piece that has the plumbing in it, and then, use panel systems to trim out the rest of it. There are lots of options for that. And, so I think that can, if we can direct more of our dollars, both city, county, other sources, toward these more innovative practices, we potentially provide more affordable housing. We can also help keep neighborhoods, in place and be, both protect history, but also be financially sustainable. And really, be innovative in that regard.
So one of the innovations that we have done at Community Link is working with the accessory dwelling unit. So we've mentioned that here. And so this is a way to help the homeowner also begin to build wealth while having that affordable unit. And so with that, I had an experience. I actually lived in an accessory dwelling unit in Maryland back in the early, back in 2000, and it was over a garage. So just looking at how to maximize space and land that we know we're not going to get any more of. So what do we do? How do we make it innovative? How do we have another unit that if you want to rent it out, it can be rented out to families. So again, bringing that family unit together is also going to be important and helpful. And one of the things that I noticed in Raleigh, North Carolina, we don't hear a lot about the tiny homes, but tiny homes could be another way to actually maximize space and to make things more affordable. If you look at what's needed, the materials needed to do those things, and it's being done here in North Carolina. So how can we look in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County to where we can provide these types of innovative ideas to help the community be able to have housing that's affordable to them, because what's affordable for me may not be affordable for someone else. So really taking the time to look at what we need and how to make it to scale, I think would really help us out.
Allow me to level set for a second. A number of years ago, I was right outside this door. There's some people right outside this door right now who we need to have a good conversation today about, how to help them. I used to be one of the people outside the door, so give me some grace. A couple of things that I've seen in my journey. I'm a Charlotte native, community advocate. I don't work for nobody. I work for the people outside this door. My business is connecting people to resources. That's what I do. A couple of things that I've seen to the point of talking about today is there's a guy in Africa that was using plastic to make interlocking blocks to build a house, right? And I know Mecklenburg County, you got to put the right plastic out so they can pick it up. What happens to all the other plastic use? Where's that going? Right? What are we doing with that? It's good what we're doing. So, but the most innovative thing that I've seen to make a point, Austin, Texas, Loaves and Fishes, Community First Village, evangelism minus the service. You have tiny homes. You have different sized tiny homes for an individual like me or a mother with children. They have the big guys on the land, and it's real nice because what I saw was them riding through the property in a golf cart. They had a couple people that actually sold their homes to actually live in the village that they were supporting, right? Here it is, this husband and wife, they sold their house and say, hey, we want to be close to the work, right? That's why their thing is evangelism minus the service, right? Because sometimes when we serve those folks outside the door and we put faith in it, we'll say, and I've experienced this myself when I was on the street. You know, you have a church come out of the men's shelter and say, hey, you hungry? Let's go to the church and we'll feed you at the church. We get to the church and they sit us in the balcony. You know, they have the service on the bottom. They sit on the balcony. And say, and then after church service, we're still hungry. We're still up there hungry. And so they allow us to come down after the service is over. They feed us in like a, thing, and they say, okay, appreciate you coming here, and get back on the bus and leave. I think the biggest struggle that we have in Charlotte, that I was in a fundraiser at United Way here. A guy, I think it's John Jackson. He talked about how Charlotte is not really loving people they serve, right? Because if you're in a relationship with somebody and you love them, right, that dynamic is totally different than how Charlotte treats people that are outside this door, right? Ain't no love, it's a divorce, right? So how do we continue to do some of the things that these folks are doing up here? Julie's doing great work in my gentrifying neighborhood, Greer Heights. We love our new neighbors, right? But there's still a disconnect. There's still a disconnect between people who are moving into the community and people like Ms. Price and Mr. James, whose property value went up 100. When Mr. James' house went up from $140,000 to $290,000 in the hood. In the hood, come on now. And you're getting these folks who first-time homeowners in their 70s and 80s. What are we going to do with them? We're going to just put them in the senior citizen place and take over their house, and that's what we're doing in Charlotte. That ain't no love relationship right there. And I think that's what we all want to do here, and the panel that you're going to hear later is that, people need us to fix this thing. The thing that's in the air now is a home for all. And I'm going to be, in my second question, I'm going to address that, but we have some dynamic people that want to work hard to help people. And I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Maurice Collins in the back, who, when I was in Family Forum, helped me to navigate through getting myself back together, right, so that I can be, a productive part of society now, instead of being like I was there. But I cannot forget those men that are outside this door. My responsibility as a business owner is I connect people to resources. That's what I do. So in every conversation that I'm in, I emphasize that, I don't work for an agency, because if I work for an agency, some of the things that I'm saying to you now I couldn't say. Right? So I have freedom to say what I want to say, because guess what? I serve the people right outside this door. I serve the people in Charlotte who can't afford to live here, they can't afford to leave. Some city workers went to and say, hey, we need some help. We can't afford to live here. You know what I'm saying? You got a young lady who drives from Bessemer City to Charlotte to operate a train in our city. Something's wrong with that. So, something's wrong with that. So, I think love is what we need to continue to do. I know we got some great people that's back, that's going to help us to do that. And we have to work together. And I think what FAE and some of the news agencies are doing, we have to keep this conversation going. So.
Thank you all for that. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I definitely think that James' point really resonated with me, in that we talk about innovation, and it's this high-level thing as far as ideas, that we can implement on the ground. But really, how do we cultivate a culture of innovation that is rooted and grounded in love, that's rooted and grounded in intentionality, that's rooted and grounded, with being responsive to the experiences that, Nadia's point about collective and cooperative housing, like, can we imagine a space and place where houseless neighbors have the ability to not only have a home because they're worthy of a home, but where they can also be owners of that without having to go and qualify for a mortgage loan? Can we imagine if we had, there's a lot of focus in Charlotte on like food cooperatives and such, but there's also worker-owner cooperatives, there's housing cooperatives. Can we imagine what that could be for people with criminal records, like those that Kenny is serving, like Kenny himself, where they can not only own their home, but also own the business that takes care of the building and cuts the lawn, and so now you are over the workforce, you're managing your own employment as well as your own housing. So just how, again, can we move in a way that is rooted and grounded in love? And so I appreciate that, James. I think the next question was like, and how can the media support and help with some of these innovations? Did you want to start? Good, brother.
It's very important to know that as we attack these different systems that, have traditionally and historically held those who were born poor back, especially in Charlotte, where Charlotte is notoriously known for being the best at holding those who are born poor back. And the news media themselves are one of the systems that we have had to, advocate against. That fight against the news media has been just as equal as that fight against the government, against the healthcare system, against big development. And I can attest to that myself right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where many of the news reporters that are here, I know them. Right? And I know them not because they reached out to me, and not because they wanted to cover our work, and not because that was the interest of the news viewers, but to them and expressed our concern to them and asked for positive coverage in our neighborhoods, right? That we went into each individual news station and newspaper, right? That we pointed these things out, right? When they made these different articles and news reports and they showed us in a negative light, continuously day in and day out, did that. And what that impact has on the community, what that has on the business sector, what that has on our leaders, right? When you continuously see our people put across the news and the media in a negative light, so much so that it affects a child. I have a 9-year-old child, right? And they see the news and they see social media, right? And they see reflections of themselves in the negative light. Be brought to the attention of the news media for positive coverage. One thing that I can say that in Charlotte, North Carolina, we now have some news media who are young enough that they do not remember when we couldn't drink from that water fountain, right? And they are born into they're young enough to have been born into a hip hop culture, right? And to being able to see different races on television, hear different music, right? See, all of those things have an impact on what we see on TV. We know that. The same thing with the news media, the things that we see. So we have been slightly blessed recently that we have a crew of news reporters. That's why this Charlotte Journalism Collaborative even exists, because of these things, right, that were noticed. That's why they created this, to be able to have a more rounded view of news media and how it's delivered to not only just people in my community, but the entire community. And it has had a profound impact. So since we first started in 2020 until now, from the whole 2020, no coverage. But coverage started to come in 2021. With that came increased funding. Right? More coverage came in 2022. Positive coverage in our communities around affordable housing, around the plight of the formerly incarcerated. That in turn to more coverage. There were people in Charlotte, North Carolina who had a heart, desire, and finances to assist us and simply did not know that we existed because the news coverage wasn't getting out like that. And as soon as it did, we started picking up new sponsorships, new funding. In turn, a family who was hard to house and hard to place is in their house now. is here that can know these people, know their stories, remember the beginning of their journey, and now see that individual in the home. Right, so I was speaking to Nate Morabito today from WCNC, and he had an opportunity to, in real time, watch a person who, started out in the hospital, shot 13 times. He had an opportunity to follow that pathway of that person all the way into permanent housing. He remembers when that happened. He remembers seeing each post along the way and following the story, and just recently was able to go out and do a positive news story on this 25-year-old Charlotte native. And that is the kind of coverage that we need to continue to have from the media, and you can see the profound impact from that.
I would piggyback off Kimmy and just say, the media is a powerful source. And I am very grateful for CJC's coverage because they've highlighted our stories and uplifted our narrative even when we weren't doing that ourselves. Sometimes it can be challenging when you're in the trenches and doing the work to really share with other people what's happening. And we've been fortunate through CJC to have that work covered and highlighted through journalism. I do think that, we know that there have been historic injustices that have happened across the nation. And it wasn't really until people started highlighting that through, whether it be social media, whether it be through journalism, that it started to gain more traction. And so I just think continuing to leverage the power of the media to lift up the stories that typically aren't told, to really share resident stories and even the collective voice of neighbors, to use that as a tool for power to demonstrate what it is that they need and what they want, and allow them to tell those narratives versus institutions communicating that for them, I think could be extremely powerful.
I also think that the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative was a big improvement in getting focus on affordable housing and what is really happening in our community. But there still does need to be education. Just like the issue that I was talking about, do people realize it's a regressive tax? The property tax is now regressive because the people who are going to be paying the increases are the ones who are legacy owners in African American communities. I don't know that they really get the math on that. And so I think that journalists have a very steep obligation to inform people in such a way that it makes it logical that if you're collecting more tax in those communities, then more of that money needs to go back into those communities. So who gets the word out on that? There's only one source, and that is the media. And they can build a movement, kind of like Kenny said, they can build a movement. Us on the ground, lots of times we can't, because we don't have the platform. They do. So I think that that's a role that is their responsibility. And I know we've got great journalists here, so I'm confident that will happen.
To build on that, I think I would say, and I know we certainly have some of this, but follow the money is the thing that I have learned the most about. I've been in Charlotte now for 7 years. Before this, I was mostly looking at how to create affordable housing that had better energy efficiency, water efficiency. I think we need that. We need more of that here. But what coming here, what I realized was if I didn't understand where the money was coming from and how it was being distributed and why it was being distributed the way it was in terms of affordable housing, financing, I really understand why there are barriers. We're basically living and working in a system that was set up by, the era of Ronald Reagan. And, that's not... it's not set up to truly empower a more collective, more, community-oriented way of thinking about our world. And I think that idea of thinking collectively rather than individually. It's a little bit anti-American, perhaps, but, go back and look at our friend Thomas Jefferson, and he's full of contradictions, Is the yeoman farmer going to go out and... that's the idea, but without some sort of, community, that's hard to, and some people are privileged to do that and not others, and that it's really baked into that system, and I think that that's something that we need to call more attention to. I also think that media can help with connecting people, and this is a fantastic example of that. And I'm already thinking about something I want to do, not as media. I have, and I'll speak a little selfishly, I've had opportunity to work with students and work with some community partners to think about, we worked with the wonderful organization Hope Vibes last fall on the potential for how to do a village similar to the one in Austin, where you could have everything from a temporary sort of studio unit to a unit for a parent with several children, in the same sort of small community, on say the grounds of a church, but then it's what happens next. And how, they're fundraising, but we could be doing more too. And, the university is sort of like a huge monstrosity of institutionalism, but facilitating, I scaled the university rather than, I think all the time I'll start my own nonprofit or something, but the ability to work with young people who are going to be having impact in the world in the future and who are eager to be working on issues and with people, out in the world. We have a lot of that. And so how to facilitate, how does that partnership go beyond a hypothetical idea to something that we can really realize? And I think that there is potential for that. And so really being able to help connect more is very important.
The other ideas. I really believe, to Julie's point, educating the community through the social media and the media lens is definitely important. We talked earlier about evictions, but there are also foreclosures. So as we are talking about people maintaining their homes, they need to maintain the homes that they were able to purchase. So bringing more awareness around foreclosure and how can people get help to keep their homes, because they're not realtors. So we want to try to bring more light around how to help people keep their homes. And we've all kind of sat here and talked about the collaborations. So collaborating with those of us provide resources to the community and information to the community and have their voice to help reach the broader audience, I think would really be beneficial around how do we make Charlotte more affordable. Here are the ways. This is where you can find the help. And just really making sure that we're reaching everyone through all social lenses. So that's where I feel we can have more assistance from the social media and journalism perspective.
Because I'm asking God to give me something. What he gave me, because we got these questions earlier. So news and where we are and answering the question. There was about a year or so ago, a young man by the name of Jarrell Hilton. He created a documentary called Without Shelter. The sheriff was in it, the Rhonda Metz, I think Liz Lexington Kelly was in it, I'm not sure if Julie was in it, but I was in it, and they talked. It's called Without Shelter, you should see it. Check it The Home for All strategy, if you guys don't know, is the latest conversation about getting everybody at the table, including individuals and organizations that usually are not at the table, along with these Fortune 500 people, Novant, Atrium in the county, some other folks in the city, to try to figure out how can we get a home for all. They've been working on that for a number of years. The news media has been, specifically FAE, but the other news media have been trying to raise the conversation about how do we fix what's going on in Charlotte. Charlotte being still number 2 in banking only because New York is an international city. We would be number 1, but we are still probably last in upper mobility for African American people, right? As far as what the Chayton report talked about, you guys know, you've heard that name. This question and getting information out to regular people like right outside this door, because the Home for All is for everybody. That's what it says. It's Home for All, right? That's what it means, Home for All. So how can we get this high level 30,000 feet plan strategy down to the people that's outside this door? Some of you are not going to follow this right here, but some of you will. Back in the day, there was a series called Roots. Remember Roots? What Roots did for me as a young man is I wanted to find out where I came from watching that. There was a lot of controversy about what we saw in that, because there was a lot of stuff that we didn't want to deal with as a community. And if you were born in that time, you know that there was a conversation about some things, right? Whites still started to feel guilty about what they saw. Some blacks, I think, like myself, we stood up, straightened our back a little bit because we realized what our people actually went through. Not stop it. My little note talks about, with this Home for All, how do we get that information that we want to have, everybody have a home, how do we get it out to the people out there? I think the news media has a responsibility to help with this. And what I thought about was a community bulletin board on all the news media to keep people up on what's going on. Because even folks outside the door, they watch the news. They might not listen to FAE, but they get their information from the news mostly. So how are we going to get this high-level plan that's for them out to them if we don't communicate it in a way that they can accept it? The news media, I believe, has a responsibility to help us, as well as our corporate partners downtown. They have a responsibility to help us get that information out to the people that are right outside this door. Because it's for them, right? Home for All, it's for them. I was a part of the conversation, so I know that it's a great strategy. But if we don't implement it the right way and disseminate it to people that they're in the plan. The people right outside, they're in the plan. So how are we going to... So I think that the media definitely has to figure out what is your responsibility of helping us to get this Home for All strategy down to what we would call regular people. Folks who have like 8th grade education, or some mental health issues like I had, or some substance abuse issues like I had, or whatever that issue is. How are we going to be a city where we're going to keep planning, doing reports and surveys, and those things not go anywhere? Charlotte has a tendency to do great stuff in the beginning, then it starts to get to the hard work, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, let somebody else do it. That's why I'm happy that my friend Catherine over at the United Way said, okay, nobody wants this hot potato, I'll take it. Nobody wanted to touch this thing, y'all. Nobody wanted the responsibility to drive the conversation about how do we make a home for everybody in Mecklenburg County. So it's a fight, I think, that we fight every day, on different levels, and I'm sure you do as well in your own ways. But folks, I love Charlotte. I was born and raised here. I got out of the military. I came back bad feeling for a Charlotte native to say that I don't like my city right now because it's not fair what we're doing to people. It's not fair that people can't eat. It's not fair that Mr. James got to figure out how he's going to come up with this extra money. It's not fair that Ms. Price has to look at the ticket, the amount of money that her house is now valued at, that if she sold it today, she can't go nowhere in Charlotte. But she built her house, she lived, she brought her family up, she got grandkids, now she got great grandkids, and she babysits. What we going to do for Ms. Price and Mr. James to make a city that's going to be better, good for them too, as well as for these folks that you see walking their dogs downtown, running. And I ain't mad at them. I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at the city. I'm not mad at them. They took opportunity, and God bless them. But there's some people outside that door we need to remember. And I do that every day. And I live with a young lady who's got 5 girls, and my heart just like King, my heart just grieves, man, for what we're doing for women and children in the city. You know, you hear me? My heart grieves that we treat people like we do in trouble. And I wake up sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out, okay, Lord, what you got me? What you want me to do today? Speak through me. Let my words touch somebody. Say something. Well, let me do something. You know, because at one time in my life, I didn't care about this kind of work because I was smoking crack cocaine. I didn't care about this stuff right. But God said, look, son, I got something for you. I don't care. I'm not looking at what you're doing in the woods. I don't care about that. But I still got something for you. Each of us has something we have to do. But once we find out what that is, I am totally in my element right now. You hear me? I know my purpose. And that's a wonderful place to be in. You know your purpose. It's not arrogance. It's confidence. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make sure that wherever I go, I bring them people in because I am them people. I'm still struggling. You hear me? I'm still struggling. So I can't forget about them. I don't want you to forget about them because we need to build a city for them as well as for the people that work for Wells Fargo. All I know.
And on that note, we're going to end there and pass it on to